לעשות.
Hello to our viewers. Today, the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, IISS, welcomes Ambassador Zalman Shoval to our ongoing video series. Ambassador Shoval is in many ways the epitome of Israel's elder statesman, a leading figure in Israel's financial and banking sectors, and a member of Knesset for over 10 years. He has the unique distinction of serving twice as Israel's ambassador to Washington. A prolific writer in current affairs in both the Israeli and international press, he has participated in many landmark events in Israel's history, including the Camp David peace talks, the Madrid peace talks, and the Y Plantation Conference in the late 1990s. Ambassador Shoval, how would you assess the current condition of the US-Israel relationship on two levels? A, at the official government level, White House, State Department, Congress, and the Pentagon, and B, in the general public in the US?
Well, I think that we can say, I think without any doubt, that the current relationship with all these factors, whether it's the White House, Congress certainly, and the population, the general American population, are very good. There's certainly an improvement on the relationship with the previous administration. But even during the previous administration, things were not so bad. I mean, they were bad from the point of view of certain specific items, like, for instance, the Iranian situation. But otherwise, I would say that if you look at the history of the last 70 years, the relationship has really gone up from administration to administration and from Israeli government to Israeli government. But there are problems, and I think we must understand, and as Americans understand, that there's not always an identity between the relations or the interests of the United States and the interests of Israel. So Israeli diplomacy, Israeli statesmanship must always strive to find those points of common interest and not overemphasize those points where we have different opinions, obviously. And usually we try to do that. We have a problem right now, I think, hopefully a temporary problem with the Jewish community in America, but that's a separate issue, I would say. If we look at the current administration, the relationship is very good. Still, I have some, I would say, some reservations, and so do many other Israelis, about the role which the Trump administration sees for itself in the Middle East. And I have the feeling, especially in the light of recent events, that the Trump administration puts the matters of Syria, for instance, and perhaps the whole issue of the Middle East on a back burner, diplomatically and politically. And that could create a problem because Israel and our neighbors, many of our Arab neighbors, see the real threat from Iran and those who are allied with Iran. And if America won't be in the picture, then all the factors of a very good bilateral relationship may perhaps be outweighed by a lessening role of the United States in the Middle East. And that is something we shall have to address because at the end of the day, I believe it will also be detrimental to the interests of the United States. We have seen things like that before. I mean, in the 30s of the last century, during periods of isolationism, who became stronger and bigger? It was the Nazis, the Germans. So I don't want to make comparisons, but with the absence of an active role by the United States, all those factors, the negative factors, the Iranians and the Russians, will grow in importance and in weight, and that's dangerous for Israel. It's dangerous for the free world.
I take your point, but as you alluded to, there has been a sea change, I think, in the relationship with the United States since the 2016 elections under the Obama presidency.
No doubt, no doubt.
Two questions regarding this. One, do you see now that the US will allow Israel to have greater freedom of action in formulating its policy, especially given the new appointments of Bolton and Pompeo? And the second question would be, what lessons should Israel learn from its ability to resist pressures from what many people saw as a less than benign administration under Obama?
First of all, I agree with your opening statement that I do think we have greater freedom of action in certain matters. For instance, with regards to settlements, this doesn't mean that we have an unlimited freedom of action, and we must be wise about these things. If you look back historically, there have always been instances and times of pressure on Israel.
Yes.
Even from President Truman, with all the credit he deserves, every administration, and usually, not always, Israel was able to withstand those pressures. And I think that's a lesson to be learned. We have to make clear where our vital issues are concerned. Issues which are not vital, we can compromise. But issues which are vital, we must stand on our ground.
Israel spends really minuscule amounts on public diplomacy, advancing its case on the international stage. Don't you think that Israel could do much more to increase the support it has in the United States? And if so, relating to something that you mentioned earlier, what can it do to deal with the erosion of support among the younger generation, university campuses, among young Democrats and large parts of the liberal jury?
I think we can always do more, and I agree that we don't do enough. And that's an old story, I would say. I read somewhere that people came to Golda Meir and said, look, we must do more. And Golda replied, why? Everybody understands that we are right. And, you know, they really believed that because we are right. Yeah. So how could intelligent people not understand that? People in America, members of Congress, and the press do have a lot of influence on public relations. And I think we must work harder in that respect, although basically, as you know, there's a great deal of support in the American public for Israel. Yes. In the Democratic Party, there's a problem, not just with regards to Israel, because there is a certain trend towards the left in the Democratic Party, and unless the more traditional leadership takes hold of itself, the Democratic Party may not be that sort of party which we or they knew in the past. So we have to work on that.
You know, just picking up on what you said about the support that Israel has in the American public. If I remember correctly, it's roughly 4-1 in our favor against the Palestinians. And you know, one of the things I've been saying for a long time now, if Israel were to spend 1% of state budget on public diplomacy, that would be $1 billion. And I think with $1 billion, I think you would agree with me that you can change a lot of minds and win a lot of hearts. So has Israel been a little bit remiss in trying to lever the public opinion support that it has and turn this into political clout?
It has been remiss, not that there was any lack of trying. There were different periods when we tried. I myself tried, I was involved in that. And strange to say, but we sometimes faced opposition from American Jewish institutions who wanted to have an exclusive monopoly on public diplomacy for Israel. I mean, you know, it's very nice to have those willing people to do that, but they did not always do this professionally enough. And we have not overcome that problem, I must say. But I agree, Israel should devote some part of its budget, a bigger part than it has now, and find the right people to do it. There are some ministers in whichever government who believe that when they make a speech, that's the best hasbara. It isn't. Some do and some don't.
Many consider the US-Israel Nexus a one-way client-patron relationship. But isn't there a case for depicting it as a less one-way and a more balanced bilateral partnership from which both sides derive considerable benefits? And if so, what would these benefits be that you see as the US enjoying, both in terms of its national economy and its national security?
Times, of course, are changing. At the beginning, I would say, of the State of Israel, it was a sort of relationship where, without any doubt, America was the leading player and Israel was the main beneficiary. That has changed over time in different fields, including in the economy, in technology, in medicine, science. Israel is contributing a great deal, and we are also contributing directly and indirectly to the arms industry in the United States. Still, of course, I mean, we should not minimize the very important role America plays in that respect. But there are many instances, some of which I won't mention perhaps for different reasons, where Israeli intelligence has made major contributions to the security of the United States. In addition to that, look, I'm not saying that in the old days when in the Cold War, for instance, I mean, there was a strategic relationship, but this didn't mean that Israeli commandos would go and, lay mines in Odessa harbor. But the very fact that America has one stable, solid, democratic ally in this whole Middle East is something that America, I think, is valuing, and it's important.
A claim has been made that the bulk of US aid to Israel is used to purchase goods and services inside the United States, and as such is really a subsidy or an incentive for the American economy, creating and preserving jobs for American workers, whilst at the same time, as you mentioned, providing support for a staunch strategic ally. Would you like to comment or elaborate on that?
I alluded to that in my response, but I'm willing to say a bit more. I negotiated at the time the changed agreements between Israel and the United States, eliminating the civilian foreign aid altogether after a number of years, and in place of that, increasing security-related aid, part of which could be used offshore for the Israeli industry. And that was a good arrangement, even though some American industries are not happy even about this marginal self-production in Israel. But still, I think it works out well. I think that's another factor which makes foreign aid, military aid, has an important benefit for American industry as well. And I think they understand that. I mean, there may be competition on certain items, but all in all, I think it has a lot of support. It has a lot of support in Congress. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted to change the agreement, because Congress people said, look, we also have housing problems, we also have social problems, so we have to deal with our problems first. But when it comes to security, Congress as one man almost, or as one woman if you want to, was supportive of this aid to Israel.
The important thing for people to understand is much of this money is a stimulus to the American economy because it's spent in America.
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, we greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us and share your valuable insights with us. And we hope that in the near future you can be with us again in further editions of our IISS video series.
You're doing a good job, and thank you for having me, because maybe this interview can help something to spread Israel's role in the United States.
That's certainly our hope. And thank you again.
Thank you.